Mazi Nnamdi Kano, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has taken a significant step in his ongoing trial by filing fresh documents at the Supreme Court, urging the Chief Justice of Nigeria, CJN, to intervene and discontinue his trial, arguing that it's based on a repealed law. This motion, which was filed at the Federal High Court, not the Supreme Court as the headlines suggested, calls for the court to stop the ongoing proceedings, particularly the judgment scheduled for 23rd November 2025. Kano's legal team is arguing that the charges against him were brought under a law that no longer exists. The law in question is the Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act 2013, which was repealed in 2022 by the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act. Kano's defense is based on the assertion that it is unconstitutional and legally flawed to continue prosecuting him under a law that has been repealed. This is a key point in the legal argument, as the defense insists that the foundation of the charges has been removed from the legal books, rendering the entire trial invalid. Now, why is this so important? Well, if the court accepts Kano's argument, it could have significant implications for other ongoing trials across the country. This could set a precedent for how courts treat cases that involve laws that have been repealed or amended. It's not just about Kano's case. It's about how the Nigerian legal system will address the validity of charges brought under laws that no longer exist. It's worth noting that Kano's legal team has been pushing this point for a while now, but his trial has continued despite these motions. His refusal to open his defense in court has also led to the court foreclosing his defense. Essentially, the court has said, since you refuse to open your defense, we're going to consider this case closed and proceed to judgment. This has sparked debate about fairness, about whether the rights of the accused are being respected, and whether the case is being handled properly in accordance with the law. The court, on the other hand, argues that Kano's refusal to participate in the trial has led to this situation. They've scheduled the judgment for November 2025, despite the ongoing motions to stop the trial. This deadline looms large, and whether or not Kano's team can stop it will have lasting consequences for the case and possibly for future legal precedents in Nigeria. If the judgment goes ahead as planned, we could see an appeal immediately afterward. If Kano is convicted, his legal team will likely challenge the conviction on the grounds that it was based on an invalid law. On the other hand, if the court rules in Kano's favor, it could lead to a monumental shift in how terrorism cases are prosecuted in Nigeria. It would send a clear message about the importance of following the law and respecting the rights of the accused, even in high-profile cases. Kano's supporters, particularly in the southeast, are closely watching this case. For them, it's not just about one man's trial. It's about the broader issue of Biafran independence and the government's approach to the issue of secession. Kano has become a symbol for many people who feel marginalized, and his trial has been a focal point for discussions about justice, governance, and the future of Nigeria as a whole. A ruling in his favor could strengthen the resolve of those advocating for greater autonomy in the southeast, while a conviction could inflame tensions even further. Beyond Kano's personal case, this trial is also about Nigeria's judiciary and how it handles politically sensitive issues. This case is being closely watched by human rights organizations, legal experts, and international observers, all of whom are interested in how Nigeria's courts balance national security concerns with individual rights. The outcome could influence how future cases of this nature are handled. Another point that needs to be addressed is the role of the Nigerian government in this trial. The government has consistently argued that Kano's activities are a threat to national security, and that his actions as the leader of IPOB have incited violence and unrest. But the question remains, is prosecuting him under a repealed law the right way to address these concerns? Shouldn't there be a clearer legal basis for such a high-profile trial? If the court decides to proceed with the judgment, despite the objections raised by Kano's legal team, it will be interesting to see how the public reacts. Kano's supporters are already mobilizing, and we can expect protests and public demonstrations, particularly in the southeast region. If the judgment is postponed or overturned, it will be seen as a significant victory for Kano's supporters, and it could have far-reaching political implications. This case is about much more than one man. It's about how the Nigerian government deals with dissent and opposition. It's about how the judiciary handles the balance between state power and individual rights, and it's about how the court interprets the law when it comes to matters of national security. Now let's think about the broader implications. What does this mean for other individuals who might find themselves in similar legal situations? If the court sets a precedent by ruling in favor of Kano's legal arguments, it could make it more difficult for the government to use repealed laws as the basis for prosecuting people in the future. It could change how the Nigerian legal system handles cases that involve complex constitutional and human rights issues. This is why this case is being watched so closely, not just by Kano's supporters, but by everyone who cares about the future of Nigeria's justice system. But regardless of what happens with Kano's trial, it's clear that the issues at the heart of this case, constitutional rights, the legality of laws, the balance of power between the state and the individual, are not going away anytime soon. This trial is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the broader conversation about justice, fairness, and the rule of law in Nigeria. So, what can we expect moving forward? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the judgment is set for November 20. But whether that happens or not depends on whether Kano's motion to stay the proceedings is accepted. If the court rules in his favor, it could delay the judgment and push the case into new territory. But if the court moves ahead with the judgment, it will be the beginning of another legal battle, as Kano's team will surely appeal any unfavorable ruling. One thing is certain, this case is far from over. It has the potential to change the way Nigeria handles terrorism cases, to reshape the way the justice system interacts with political dissent, and to influence the broader conversation about the future of Biafra and the Southeast region. Great. Let's pick up where we left off. As we look ahead to the judgment date of November 20, 2025, it's clear that the stakes are high for everyone involved. This trial, as much as it centers on Nnamdi Kano, is really a test case for Nigeria's legal system. It's a test of whether the courts will prioritize the constitution and individual rights, or whether they'll be swayed by political pressures. That's why this case is getting so much attention. Not just from Kano supporters, but from people across Nigeria and the world who are watching to see how the justice system handles cases that mix politics with legal procedure. If the court does proceed with the judgment on November 20th, despite Kano's objections, it will mark a key moment in Nigerian history. It could either reinforce the notion that the legal system upholds the rule of law, no matter the political circumstances, or it could create a precedent that undermines the legal rights of accused individuals, especially in politically sensitive cases. But let's consider for a moment what would happen if the court accepts Kano's argument. If the court finds that his trial is based on a repealed law and halts the judgment, it will send shockwaves through the entire judicial system. It would create a significant legal precedent, making it clear that laws cannot be used to prosecute individuals if those laws are no longer in effect. That's a major statement, and it could affect future cases involving similar legal issues. However, there's also the reality of how this will play out in the court of public opinion. Kano has a significant base of support, particularly from people in the southeast of Nigeria who view him as a champion of their rights. If the court rules in his favor, it could further embolden his supporters and strengthen the movement for Biafran independence. But if the court rules against him, it could lead to more unrest and possibly even violence. This is not just a legal battle, it's a political one with deep roots in regional tensions. If the judgment is delayed or overturned, we might see a period of uncertainty in Nigeria. It could spark protests, legal challenges, and more calls for reforms in the way the government handles cases of political dissent. This could also have international repercussions, as human rights organizations and foreign governments will be watching to see how Nigeria handles the situation. It's likely that Kano's case will continue to be a talking point in discussions about Nigeria's justice system, democracy, and human rights. Let's also think about the political impact. Kano has been a thorn in the side of the Nigerian government for years now, and his trial has been a flashpoint in the broader conversation about Nigeria's political landscape. The government views Kano as a destabilizing force, someone whose actions have led to violence and unrest in the country. But for his supporters, Kano is seen as a symbol of resistance, someone who is fighting for the rights of the marginalized. This trial, then, is not just about Kano as an individual. It's about what he represents in the larger context of Nigerian politics. It's also worth considering what might happen after the judgment. If the court rules against Kano, his legal team will likely appeal the decision, leading to a protracted legal battle. Even if the judgment is in his favor, there's no guarantee that this will be the end of the road. The Nigerian government might seek to challenge the ruling, and Kano's supporters will continue to push for his full exoneration. Either way, this case is far from over, and the consequences will likely be felt for years to come. As we wait for the court's decision, the key thing to keep in mind is that this is a pivotal moment for Nigeria. The outcome of Kano's trial will have long-lasting effects, not just for him, but for the country as a whole. And for those of us watching from the sidelines, it's important to stay informed and engaged. This case isn't just about one man's fate. It's about the future of justice in Nigeria. If you've been following this case, or if you're just hearing about it now, make sure to stay tuned for updates as we move closer to the judgment date. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Kano's trial should be stopped because it's based on a repealed law? Or do you think the court should proceed with the judgment as planned? Let's discuss it in the comments section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this important case.
Somebody who is agitating is not a terrorist. So, from every indication, Nnamdi Kano is trying to reset the Nigerian judiciary. He's trying to turn so many things around, and if he succeeds with what he's doing, I promise you, the Nigerian judiciary will not remain the same. Yes, this might also backfire in a way. But you know, I keep trying to understand exactly what the government is trying to achieve from this whole thing. It's obvious that the politicians from the southeast are highly invested in this matter, in the sense that they know that this case is critical to them, not for the sake of Nnamdi Kano or the people who are clamoring for his release, but for their own political interest. And I understand that very clearly. If as a politician, you don't want anything that will tamper with your political growth. And you know, if you watch how even Peter Obi has quite silently avoided some of the cases, the way the case is going, he has made his point that Nnamdi Kano has no reason to be in prison. These are agitators. Agitators are not to be arrested, detained, and locked up and tried forever. That agitators are meant to be negotiated with. You need to dialogue with them. Ask them questions. What exactly are you agitating for? Somebody who is agitating is not a terrorist. He is only agitating for self-determination. You are supposed to approach him. Why? What is the problem? If you treat him the way you are treating him right now, you're only making his position, you're only increasing his anger and the anger of his people, and you are making them see more reasons to agitate. So, but when you treat them like a member, you sit down with these people and sit down. What is the problem? What can we do to make you stop agitating? At least, if you can negotiate with bandits who carry double barrel, all kinds of weapons, why then can't you negotiate with Nnamdi Kano? Who, if you call Nnamdi Kano a terrorist, all those people who you hear, Onyendu means our leader, means all of them are terrorists. So, you have to arrest every Igbo person in the sense. If you want to do that, you have to arrest everybody that is Igbo. So, I don't know exactly what the Nigerian government is trying to achieve, but I thought we are in democracy, and I thought democracy would respect people's rights, especially right to self-determination. But unfortunately, I don't. That's why I fought this particular constitution we are using. I fought it a lot. In fact, it's absolute nonsense.